Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. We made it to the end of season 4, Dave.
Yeah, wow. That's
Still
probably
going.
3.97 more than expected.
Indeed. Playoff final Sunday. Let's go through the games. Let's start off with the women's game. London Lions 92, Newcastle Eagles 65. No Gerald Dapper for Newcastle, which was quite a significant blow, given how she was playing, particularly in the playoffs. Katie Nolan was there, and obviously she's been out. Injured. Lions without the WNBA players that we knew about. 3 minutes in, Matt Newby a timeout at 7-0. Eagles 1 for 8 from the floor, 14-2 down at the TV timeout, and it looked like it could be a long afternoon.
It did. I mean, I thought, well, firstly, yeah, you're right about Jada Dapper. She did her Achilles in training, which is awful. Before that game, she had 22 and 11 against Caledonia last week. Given that, they've kind of scraped past Caledonia and Sheffield, and to take out a major contributor out of those wins and then to go up against somebody who's one step better is tough. I thought early on, actually, I thought Newcastle got some decent shots. They knock them down, but there's kind of been a pattern in these finals, certainly, of teams not making outside shots early. They got some reasonable looks. Abby Lowe got some looks. Marina Fernandez got some looks. Didn't knock them down, and yeah, and then London made a couple of layups and a little bit of transition because they're physically far more. They were physically far more impactful than Newcastle were. You could see, they had more size, they had more athleticism. And yeah, so it didn't look great.
They did find some. They did find some rhythm after that timeout, though. Six points in a row, and actually that was part of a bigger 14-4 run. I mentioned Nolan when she came on had a big impact in the game, and Willis as well. And they had a Willis 3 early in the second quarter. It was a 1-point game,
Yeah, I mean,
2019.
it's great for Zoe. She hasn't played that much, and she had 7 points around the quarter break, which was critical because Newcastle was going to struggle to score.
Mm.
They needed scoring out of everybody else, if that made any sense. Hodges had scored early, but without Dapper, and as you say, and the scoring was going to be tricky, and they did, and they played competitively throughout. London obviously pretty good.
Yeah.
How is it, Katanich?
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously Abby Myers.
Mm.
Now, just to remind everybody, Abby Myers was the 11th pick in the first round of the WNBA draft
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right, so this isn't kind of somebody who's just firing out of nowhere, and she may have been slightly overshadowed by Gustafsson, Samuelson, and Fagbenley, but if you're the 11th pick in the WNBA draft,
Pretty good.
you're pretty good, and you're a slightly a level above everybody else on the court, I think. They also obviously they got Snitsina, who's still a quality shooter, and Savannah Wilkinson, who's a unit and with good skills and good touch. And they kind of wore Newcastle down, particularly that second quarter.
Yeah.
And
I thought there was shades of Kiki Herbert Harrigan in that trophy final where it was just like she's
bang.
there. You know what I mean? It was just
Yeah,
like, wow, look at that. Look how good she is. It just really
yeah.
eye catching. She had Myers had 21 points, 6 of 8 shooting, 4 of 6 for 3 in the first half. Bear in mind, I think it's only 7 or 8 players have ever scored 20 points in the playoff final. And she had it done. She had that done with 3 minutes to go to halftime. They scored 20 of the last 27.
It's a
And
4 of 6 from three, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
that's
it is. Yeah,
what gives you ultimately. You can kind of go layup for layup, but then if you get a transition three or if Abby Myers gets a corner three and she's knocking them down, and Newcastle are knocking their threes down, and their threes are probably a little bit harder, and the shooters probably not quite as kind of at the level of the 11th pick in the NBA draft.
mm,
Then those are the small margins, which suddenly makes a 10-point game become an 18-point game.
mm.
And after that, it was a question of kind of how many. But I was quite chuffed watching it, actually. For your phrase, full disclosure,
Mm,
the Eagles ladies team is run by the Community Foundation, so technically I am part owner of it as a
mm.
trustee.
There you go.
But it's run by the Community Foundation, separate from the club, from the men's club, and I say run, I think definitely funded. And I thought, you know, for I thought none of them let themselves down, if that makes any sense.
No.
And didn't stop playing. And you know,
And shout out to the fans as well. There's quite a good number of
yeah, well,
Eagles
you
fans
know,
made
I've
the
talked
trip.
before. I've kind of humble bragged before about how, you know, how we're getting a lot of fans to these games and how good a job the club is doing in kind of building British basketball and building women's basketball and building support for it, you know, and there is becoming an affinity between the fans and the players. And I do know that you know, when you kind of into the social media of the Eagles, like I am, and I'm on the Facebook page, member, on Twitter, and all this stuff. You do see that basically everything that's done for the men is done for the women. It is entirely equal. There's no form of kind of after the Lord's Mayor's show, I will do a little bit for the women or whatever. Everything is absolutely the same. The promotion is the same. That we were at the community dinner on Thursday night, that was the same. You know, everybody gets equal airtime. Everybody's, you know, and so that is a positive thing moving forward for British basketball, and hopefully we get more of that in. We get that kind of replicated in other places where you know, gyms in Scotland and in Leicester and Sheffield and Nottingham and Oakland even, you know, and hopefully that's we end up back at the place where we started 3 or 4 years ago, saying look, organic growth is possible as opposed to kind of you know, steroided growth.
Hydroponics growth.
Yeah, as opposed to the cannabis farm lighting system. Cannabis farm lighting systems. The growing WNBA players out of nothing. So that was good. The game itself is difficult to say. I mean, I haven't even probably Winterburn yet. You know how good she is, and my
a couple of really good assists from Winterburn in that game. Which bear in mind when they started playing in the point guard position, was it last year? We were all going, well, she's not really a point guard, is she? But she
just beginning to work out her in the screener role certainly, and she's going to be high level in Europe next year and see where she gets to over the summer. So they were really good. Newcastle kind of stuck in, which meant that it wasn't a procession at any point. You didn't kind of feel that everything had stopped, that the game had stopped being played. Hodges is obviously a good player. She's a competitive player and a rebounding player. And as you say, Nolan, to be fair to Nolan's, that might be Katie Nolan's last game, but you know, she's coming back off a broken ankle. I mean, there's no way she should be playing really, or on the injury that she had. She was in a boot 2 weeks ago at the Eagles men's game. You know, so to come in and show that type of commitment to that at that level is great. Yeah, outside of that, it's all bigger picture stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. We'll get to the bigger picture stuff at the end, I think. Lions with 28 points in the second quarter, which broke the record for most points in a quarter in a playoff final. They then did that again in the third quarter, and Myers had broken the record for points in a playoff final before the end of the third. It ended up the biggest win and the second highest score. But as you say, I thought Newcastle played well despite all of that.
They didn't make as many shots. They need to make more shots, and maybe a few less. You know, they ran maybe a few dead ball turnovers and live ball turnovers, which kind of expanded the score out a little bit. So you know, if they make maybe a couple more threes and turn the ball a couple less times, and maybe it gets to a 10 or 15 point game. But the reason you're not doing that is because London's not good.
Yeah.
You're not, you know, you have to play the perfect game to even stay close. They weren't perfect, but they weren't that bad, certainly.
Myers was the MVP, 31 points, which is not only a playoff final record, but it's actually the second highest score in any playoff game in the WBBL era. 6 for 10 threes, which was the most made threes in a playoff final. 9 for 9 is the best free throws without missing, so another record there. Wilkinson, 13 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. They had 5 players in double figures. Hodges, you mentioned, 21 points, 12 rebounds, Lowe with 12 points as well. They were the only 2 in double figures. So let's go to the men's game. London Lions 88, Cheshire Phoenix 85. What a game this was. It was a bit of a stuttering start, really. There was delays. There was, I don't know, was it a shot clock issue? Was it clock issue. I wasn't quite sure what was going on, but and similar to the women's, not too many shots going down in the first 5 minutes as they worked out the sight lines.
Yeah,
Definitely physical though, definitely a physical game.
yeah. Well, my scouts down there tell me that there wasn't even a live scoreboard going on during these games. It's kind of the screen was running, but there was no actual formal live scoreboard showing like team fouls and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So I don't know what's gone wrong there.
because it's
I know
normally up on the big
it is, yeah, and
jumbo.
then the fact it's fine. You've got a fantastic logo at the middle of the court, but how about something that actually impacts the game and makes the game better for everybody else being fixed. Also, I didn't like the fact that there was a NBA 3.9 taped off on the court as well. I don't know why that is, why that was there.
I think that's always there, isn't it? Isn't that the O2's court has an NBA line in it? It's not that the NBA line is taped off; it's that they tape on the FIBA line
Right,
and
okay.
hide the NBA
I
line.
had the NBA line. Well,
Yeah, I think that's
anyway,
always there.
if you're gonna commercialize and market your own product with a big little center court logo, then whatever. So the end. So then we have the inevitable shot clock teams to benches thing. Happens to be a minute and a half before your TV timeout
Mm,
at the beginning of the game. The most important thing in the whole game was how London were going to defend Cheshire's pick and pop game. And basically, London decided that we were going to switch. They were just going to
mm,
switch onto. They were going to allow Rideau to switch onto Olaseni.
mm,
They were going to allow Rideau to switch onto Conor Morgan, and they figured that their bigs could defend him.
mm,
And that means that they basically say to Skylar White, you go or Charge White, you go down inside, and Tariq Phillip or Jordan Taylor will body you up, and we'll deal with that.
mm.
What they weren't doing was giving up the pick and pop threes on the hedge. And I thought that really kind of lulled Cheshire into that, together with missing some open shots in the 3-point line. I thought that lulled them into kind of uncertainty early on. They weren't quite sure whether Rideau wasn't quite sure whether to attack the big every single time, or whether they were going to try and throw the ball down into the big guy in the post who's got the mismatch, because that's not really their game.
Mm,
And then it kind of came to, well, then we'll throw the ball on the wing to Rye, and Rye then has to make a play late in the shot clock with somebody in the middle. And this is a problem. Cheshire used to play in 5 out. Okay,
mm,
but when you run the switch, the big guy is generally going down in the lane to try and get a layup, try and get a rebound, because he's got a guard guarding him. So when if Rideau doesn't attack straight away, or if they don't attack straight away, the two-man game, the ball gets rotated. It's nearly always being rotated to Rye, because he's always the third attack. He's the next creator on the team, because Jack and Charles or whoever are in the corners. And Rye's then having to penetrate, but he's got a guy down there. He's got Skylar White down there. He's got Charles down there. He's got a defender down there. He's got his guy in front of him as well. And so suddenly the lane is very crowded.
mm,
I thought Cheshire really, Ben Thomas alluded to at half time. He said, we haven't played our game. And I think what he meant, I might be wrong, but I think what he meant was that they were tentative. They weren't in attack mode. They were what London did in switching all the screens kind of threw them off a little bit.
mm.
And it was really very, very noticeable is that you big guys are not getting threes. And this is, what I was talking about in the Bristol games when the big guys were getting threes.
Yeah.
But the thing was, Bristol didn't trust, and probably for good reason, didn't trust Brad Green to be able to guard Rideau,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's a different level of big. So you've got a different level of big when you've got Olaseni
Morgan.
and Morgan, who are relatively quick and dexterous and quick on their feet, and have good size, and who can really wear Rideau down. And
And as you say, there's a difference between the last 4 minutes of the game where Rideau might attack every time versus the first 4 minutes of the game. You don't really want him attacking every time.
Well, where they're having to figure it out, and they're trying to get other people involved and try what they're doing. So they kind of they got out of this kind of almost perpetual attack mode that they've been in all season. If that makes any sense. They've been constantly at you, attacking mismatches. Ben even talked about it pre-game, attacking the mismatches, attacking the opposition, then gang rebounding and getting out on transition. Now, defensively, they weren't great early, but, they were okay. But they really didn't get out in transition at all in the first half. And London took this game a lot more seriously than the last.
Yeah.
Because you can tell that by just look at their rotations. Matt Morgan played 8.5 minutes in the first quarter. Matt Morgan hasn't played 8.5 minutes in the first quarter all season. They ran 9 guys. Mo Solowade, who's a pretty solid guard, played 3 seconds, certainly, in this game. And that's only because they couldn't take him out after he played no seconds.
Yeah.
So because they put him on, the ball was thrown out and they took him off again. So they really shrunk their rotation and played it like it was a final, whereas in the trophy final, they didn't really play it like that.
No.
Talked about it at the time. And it was working a dream until, probably 3 minutes in the third quarter.
Yeah. So let's walk through the first half. White banks in a 3-9-12, and then London got out and running. Cheshire turned the ball over a few times as well, which didn't help. Sharma was scoring. Lions with 15 straight points to lead 24-12 before an incredible dunk by Ulf at the end of the first quarter.
Under the spin roll.
Yeah.
Even then, that was when they didn't switch on that one because it was Ulf. They just kind of chased him over. They didn't think Ulf was going to be able to make that play, so they just chased.
I'm not sure anybody thought Ulf was going
to
make that
play.
play.
The running start, he's running start. He's dunk. What that was, Rideau put the ball perfectly in his path for the bounce pass, which they were able to do because whoever was guarding Rideau went over the screen and fought and tailed him, as opposed to just switching it. So he did make absolutely made a great play, but they were just they scored 14 points in the first quarter. Is that right? 14 points?
Yeah, because it was 24-12 and then that.
Yeah, 14 points in the first quarter. That's a pace of 56. I mean, they regularly scored 56 and a half. Last time they had Ellesmere Port against London, they had like 60 by the half.
Yeah.
So they really had been kind of taken out by the little tweak that Bozic had made in relation to how to defend them.
So the lead stayed.
I will say about everybody, just on everybody else, it's easy for me. It's easy to say, well, why hasn't everybody else been doing it all season?
Because
everybody
else
has got all the Shenny, Conor Morgan and Josh Sharma to do to switch onto those guys and do it without fouling. It's a different level of player.
Yeah. Lead stayed between 9 and 16. Was 11 at the half, 52-41. Which is the most in a first half at a playoff final. Takes the Eagles out of the records books. Eagles scored 51 against Everton in 2009. Also 28-27 second quarter is the highest scoring second quarter.
That was before me, but from memory, they had like 35 in the first quarter in that game.
Yeah.
Reggie Jackson made 4 threes in a row, and Trey Moore was going ballistic. And that'll be about right, yeah.
And then minute 10 into the third quarter, it's a 7-0 start by London. Ben's had to call a timeout, down 18, 59-41, and this one looked like it was only going one way at that point.
It did, and London, I think, firstly, Cheshire haven't really quit on a game all season, and they're not going to quit now. They've got 200 Lancastrians, so Cheshireans, I don't know what the word is, behind them in the t-shirts. They're in the big arena. It's the last game. They're not going to stop playing. My impression was London kind of thought they might, because I thought if you look at the first 6 offensive possessions that Cheshire had after that timeout, they got stuff easier than they had all game. They got to the rim. They got threes. I think Jack got maybe a dunk on Morgan, just kind of Morgan running in the corner. Rideau gets a layup suddenly, and that's it. And that's what happened was that was dangerous.
Yeah,
it was dangerous for London because it gave Cheshire a rhythm, and then Cheshire can start playing from behind. Cheshire can start playing fearlessly, and I know it was for me. It was our cup final 2015. We were 15 behind against Leicester, and we were able to play fearlessly. You could play small and just run and attack, and suddenly the momentum of the game can change. And when the momentum changes late, it's dangerous. So I thought they took their foot off the pedal.
Rye also had 5 points in that spell, and Christian hits a 3, which got it down to 5, although he got a technical for his reaction to the Lions bench. So it was 69-63 with 3:16 to go. I couldn't work out whether Christian got his 4th foul on a moving screen with 2:30 to go. It said 4 on the graphic, but only said 3 on the live stats. Taylor certainly did get his 4th foul with 2:09 to go. I thought that was a little tough. And Shargwal got his 4th as well with 1:30 to go in the third quarter.
Jordan Taylor got fouled out on 2 horrible calls.
Yeah. Both of the fourth and the fifth were
I'm
tough.
sorry, they were just horrible call. I mean, the first one he took a forearm from Rideau. He wasn't in Rideau's space. Just because somebody's not in a defensive stance right in front of you doesn't mean stick a forearm in you and you get a foul. And the second one, literally Chargeois locked him.
Yeah.
He had his hands up. He was and. I mean, I would have hoped that the refs would have they did okay refing Rideau. I mean, there was all the theatrics as normal. There was the elbow in the face in the first quarter where he looked at the TV and in fact he hit him on the arm. There was lots of
one as well on where Olashoni got called for a push in the back where it was
just
halfway down. It was a footballer winning a penalty.
Arsenal would have wanted a penalty. Arsenal would have wanted it to be disallowed. Joe Litton is one of my favorite individuals. Just hard. Anyway, but yeah, there was that, and even the kind of the bump that there was no and one on Olashoni at the end. It was pretty. It was pretty much a no call at me. But we've talked before. He's a tough guy to ref. So yeah, there was some calls went back and forwards, but at that point it was kind of who was getting tight, and London made them. London really, I put it on London because they got comfortable up 18. I don't imagine that team thinks there's any way any team can beat them when they're up 18. I can get that, right? But you can't get comfortable in the final, and you can't get comfortable against a team as spiritable as Cheshire. And they did, and their defense dropped off, and they kind of scored a little bit with them to keep it at 14 or 15, and then bang, Cheshire pick it up. London's bench doesn't quite work the way it was meant to work. London get a bit antsy, and suddenly Cheshire are scoring in transition.
And then a jack 3 at the end of the quarter, 74-71. The other thing about it is obviously Nelson is out, and with Taylor in the foul trouble, they didn't quite have the depth at the point guard position that they've had all season long. So it was
I mean, it's an abundance of riches, and they've still got more than everybody else.
Yeah. It's just
I mean, that's Nelson was actually quite a critical player for him because he was a kind of a combo. And they don't really have a combo. Taylor and Philip are basically point guards. They can score, but basically a point guard. Nelson was kind of the guy. He wasn't that far up your scouting report, but suddenly 6 points or a screen and roll or at the end of the shot clock, he's making a play, and suddenly you think, oh Jesus, and then this other guy's coming back. But even so, Jordan Taylor, Tariq Phillip, and Matt Martin are, with the addition of Noir out at the wing, it's plenty enough.
You've gone back there, Matt Martin, rather than Matt
Morgan. Sorry, Matt Martin. Who was it? Matt Martin was Bob Martin's son who played for Sheffield.
Yeah, there's been a couple of Matt Martins in the league.
Yeah, I think Bob Martin played for Sheffield 7 or 8 years ago. He played David Sheffield, left-handed, kind of shoot a bit undersized for a 4. But sorry, Matt Morgan.
Yeah. 8 minutes to go in the game. White with a fourth foul on a block. I think he did catch him on the wrist.
Arm. Pretty clearly hit his arm.
Then Taylor fouled out with 6 minutes to go. That was the one you just talked about where there was a switch on to Chargeois. And then
it wouldn't be that the ref sees that late. The ref see that late. So if he sees how it happens, then you Taylor. You can't do more than have your hands like that.
Yeah.
If your hands are straight, then by definition you're not hooking somebody. It's a guy with a bent arm that's hooking you. Because the guy with a bent arm can release by straightening his arm. So I thought it got a little bit. The refereeing of contact was a bit dubious by the end.
Rideau then got his fourth foul with 4.5 minutes to go, stepping across on a Morgan drive. So that was the point of the TV timeout. It's 79-78 at that point. And actually, I just wonder. I've not watched it back, but I wonder if Cheshire watching it back might feel that in this next couple of minutes they had a few shots there that they could have knocked one of them down and got in front. That might have been.
Yeah, I think it was a game whereby they had to get the nose in front because then the pressure transfers. And at that point, London had given them basically the best shot. You had to take Decker out with 3.5 minutes to go, because Decker was tired. Did a lot of minutes, played more minutes. So you had to take him out, and Decker was spending a lot of time in the corner as well. So I don't think he was overly healthy, if that makes any sense. So at that point, he's Bozic is keeping Decker for the end on the basis that this is going to be a game at the end. as opposed to saying this is a chance for us to put the game away now.
Yeah.
Which ended up being a good call, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Cheshire had some looks.
Mm.
Rye had a couple of looks. I think Rideau might have had a layup kind of look, and maybe Jack as well. But they couldn't get their nose in front, and it's easy to get, as I say, the moment that you have to get over the hump, and you have to get over the hump before the end. It is extraordinarily rare that you come back from a 20-point lead and you win it, and the only time you're ahead is the last second.
I can only think of it once in all the games I did. I remember doing a game in Sheffield. It was Sheffield against, I think it was Plymouth, and Sheffield's only lead of the game was the final score.
Yeah,
and they'd been down big in the first quarter. Let's go through the end then. 2:09 to go. Jack at the free throw line goes.
Oh, sorry, just on that one. I'm amazed Ryan never got a technical.
For what? For throwing the ball?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, my mum said the same thing, and I said no because he's falling out of bounds. He threw it
the
back
whistle.
in.
It was 3 seconds after the whistle.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a temper throw. And I'm looking at Ian McDonald, who's been taking people up all season for breathing in his direction. And let that one go. I thought, ooh, final referee going on here. We're being a bit more lenient, which is all right because it's 4 minutes to go in a final, and you've got to be sure. But that was Nwaba got a couple of calls, which were, and that one in particular, he just, oh my God, he threw the ball at me. What's going on? You can't do that. Yeah. So I'm anyway. Yeah, moving on.
Well, you were right, Mom. I was wrong.
Yeah,
Dave agrees with you. So 2:09 to go. Jack 1 of 2 from the free throw line, 83-80. Philip then missed a 3. Rideau with a turnover. Matt Morgan in transition was fouled, and he goes to the free throw line with 1:30 to go. And bearing in mind, he's not missed too many free throws all season. You're expecting both of these to go in, but he only went 1 for 2. And it's 84-80.
Jack missed one and Morgan missed one, didn't they?
Yeah. Two unbelievable free throw shooters. The guys you'd want to be on the line. They're both 90% free throw shooters, and they both missed one at the end of the game. So then timeout, advanced the ball. Shagwa missed. Jack had the rebound, but then kind of lost it out of bounds. So London got the ball back.
Yeah, they went to a post up for Shagwa. That was the first option, but London had done a good job all game of taking away kind of the pick and pop, the threes off one pass, and made them play one-on-one. And the one-on-one they went to was Shagwa on Olseni, which was probably not the best matchup for them. And they got kind of a 15-foot turnaround. 2 contested 2-point jump shot, which is not what they've made the whole season on.
No.
So the time they really needed to score, they didn't get the look that they wanted.
And then London obviously had the ball back. Olashani misses from relatively close range, probably 8 feet. Rideau straight to the rim, into the body, and 1. 58.6 seconds to go. 84-83. And despite Nwaba's attempts to put him off by walking across the lane at an opportune moment, he made the free throw.
Yeah, I mean that was again, that's what Cheshire do want, which is transition. I mean, I think that was a no call. I wouldn't have called that. I thought that was I thought it was pretty soft for that time in the final because Rideau was seeking out the contact. But to be fair, Olasheni wasn't in legal guarding position. But even so, it was all. Rideau does a wonderful job. Does an excellent job. I mustn't use that word. I don't know where I get it from. Does an excellent job of leaning in with his front arm and bouncing off people. And fair, and credit to him for that. Whether, as I say, there was enough contact there, I don't know. But anyway, he knocked down the shot. He knocked down the foul shot. The man who couldn't make a foul shot was knocking him down and crunched. And yeah, game on.
Timeout, no advance to the ball, obviously. Ball's pinging about. Rye, it was late in the shot clock. Rye bought a head fake, and Philip put it on the floor, committed the foul. So Philip goes to the free throw line with 38.2 seconds to go.
Yeah, they played good defense on that possession. But Decker was almost a decoy. He was starting at the top, and he was the facilitator to get the ball to Matt Morgan and to get him off this kind of the high screen going downhill, but they couldn't really do that and ended up having to throw the skip pass to Philip, who makes a play really. By faking right up in the air and getting himself out, he made a play. to bail them out with 3 seconds on the shot clock. Or it seemed very short time on the shot clock, I think,
Yeah,
anyway.
it was.
But then he's got knocked down foul shots.
And he only knocked down one of them. So it's 85-83. Again, Rideau to the basket, 31 seconds left, ties the scores at 85 points apiece.
That's a brilliant play by Rideau because he got a 2-for-1 and he scored and he got to the rim through the risk of being fouled. It's just a brilliant play. It wasn't an easy shot. It was what he does. He kind of barreled his way to the rim. At this point, London had been toggling around with centres and without centres, and I kind of thought they lost the plot a little bit earlier on when they went without their centre and they went small for quite a long time because Sharma hardly played in the second half. So they were playing with kind of Grantham, Olasheni, and Grantham, Conor Morgan, Nwaba, those guys, and no true big. And they've been, if you think about it, most of the season, they've only played without a centre in absolute emergency situations. And I thought that was them kind of bending to Cheshire a little bit. So by this point, Olasheni is back in, but it took about a minute until about a minute and a half before he was back in. And as I say, the danger is, you're matching up with them on the perimeter, but they're able to, without that centre who's actually used to being down in there and used to challenging shots. You're all a little bit later, slower on sagging in on the penetration, and people like Rideau don't need much opportunity and get to the rim and finish. Just a great play.
So London run the clock. Morgan drives, kicks to the corner. Chargois helping off the strong side, Dave. Go on, you want to. You don't want to praise Decker hitting a game-winning three, Dave. You want to talk about the helping off the strong side shooter, Dave. I know.
I've already had 3 texts about it. If anybody, and a tweet from Johnny B, if anybody who watches this repeatedly, bless you, hasn't already thought of this, hasn't already said this in their own mind, then I have failed in my mission, because the best shooter, certainly possibly the best shooter we've ever seen in this country, given his size, his ability to get his shot off. We've had pure shooters who've run around and, can knock shots down, but nobody's ever been as good a shooter as Sam Decker. It's as good a standstill shooter off the catch at 6'9" as Sam Decker. I don't think we've ever had one. Right. And we've had some good ones. And I'm not talking about big stretch fives like Andy Thompson, people like that, who catch it when basically no one's there. I'm talking about wing players at that size, right? He is, his resume is one of the best. He's number 18 pick in the first round of the NBA draft. And to be fair, you've got Matt Morgan coming at you. In the possession before that, they had forced them to throw a skip to the far corner. And this possession, unfortunately, it wasn't an easy pass because by coming across a little bit, Chargois had actually made Morgan take half a step more and he kind of had to throw it out the backside, his hand. So it was a great pass as well, sharing the ball. And obviously Chargois 6'9" and he was able to get up to contest it, but a contest for someone like Decker, feet set at that time. If London had said, if you'd said to London before that possession, what shot you're going to get? We're going to get Sam Decker in a corner 3 off the catch. You'd have said, yep, we'll take that. Then you add in the fact it's in front of the Cheshire bench, and he's just not going to miss. He's not, there's a reason they get paid the big bucks, and he's not going to miss. So, so a little lack of discipline from Chargois, but of course, Chargois is a 4 or a 5 defending a 3. So it's his natural instinct is just to sag a little bit, maybe to make Morgan's shot more difficult, or to get back in the lane a little bit, just an inch, 2 inches. So all it needs to be. But Decker cannot have a catch and shoot corner 3 there. And not in with 4 or 5 seconds on the shot clock as well.
Yeah. There was they got the ball at 31. It went in. He shot it at 10, so there's probably 3 seconds on the shot.
And I was waiting for Decker from the corner for the lead. Unfortunately, that ship sailed in Glasgow last year.
Indeed, yeah. And then obviously a timeout advanced the ball. It went into Jack. It was kind of knocked away from him. He just about got one away that missed, and Rye just about got the ball and heaved something up on the buzzer, and that didn't go either. And that was it.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately that ball has to be in Rideau or Rye's hands, because those it's 9 seconds, so it's tough. You've got to either get a very quick score, or you've got to get a three. But what you don't need is a very quick three. That makes sense. That sounds a bit weird. And they went to get, to basically to spring Jack off for a three off the first pass. And London was switching stuff, and London weren't going to give that up. It needed to be a very quick action, maybe with Rideau at the top. I think maybe to get downhill and get a layup and extend the game, or alternatively with Wright at the top to kind of maybe try and sack somebody in and maybe find some shooters in the corner. But it's tough. I mean, it's 9 seconds. It was 15 seconds. They'd done something differently, but they never got a good look at it. Wright got a rebound, but his shot was fading away, and there wasn't much in the way of complaint. And our producers didn't think it was appropriate to give us a replay of the most important non-call of the game. So I don't actually know. Didn't seem much of a complaint about it.
It was well challenged, we'll say that way. There was a lot of challenge there, but as you say,
fading away. I think it's fading away. Didn't seem particularly perturbed.
No, he didn't.
No, but Rob wasn't on the court, sorry, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I mean they just about kind of muddled through London. I think that's probably the fairest way to say it. Mostly that's because of Cheshire's excellence, to be fair. Excellence in comparable terms in British Basketball League terms. They are, a British Basketball League team, and London are a European team. There's difference. Never has so much money been spent to beat a team from Ellesmere Port. That thriving urban metropolis. But they just about did it. The one thing I'll say about London is those guys have, other than the trophy final, where I didn't think they respected it. I didn't think they respected the competition at all. And the competition both being the trophy and the competition being the Phoenix. I didn't think they respected it at all. And I thought they let themselves down big time. And I thought that came from the coach as well. So I don't think the coach was looking at games in Europe and everything else, bigger picture, all that type of stuff. Apart from that, since then they've been, to use a slightly overused phrase, unbeatable. And
go on, Dave, sing it.
No.
If I had a horn, I'd be blowing it now, and you could start going. I'm unbeatable. I'm unbeatable.
No. When I start my next career as a TikTok influencer, then yeah, maybe, but not before.
We'll send Lasker your way.
You don't get my data.
The one thing I would say before I do the score is incredible season from Cheshire. I know London have ended up winning, but London are supposed to win, and I don't think any of us in September expected Cheshire to be as good as they were, and I know they announced themselves in that game one with an impressive win at Leicester. But the consistency of them all the way through, and even today, as you say, to come back from what was it, 18, 19 points down.
That was the most impressive thing.
Yeah.
That was by far the most impressive thing, being down 18 and still going toe to toe with London, to the point whereby London were taking a few kind of wobbly kneed steps backwards, kind of Tyson Fury steps backwards.
Yeah, they were maybe not full on Tyson
last
night, but not far off it.
Exactly. It also goes to show what an absolute lunacy it is, people making predictions in September.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we avoid to do it.
I think we do.
You do, because it's like you don't predict, you can't predict what you don't know, and you don't know who half these players are. You don't know how they're going to react. And Cheshire brought back,
And to be fair, after the first month of the season, nobody was predicting that Rideau was going to be
what he was,
the baller that he was at the end of the season.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and teams kind of develop personality over the year. So they brought back Maceo Jack and David Ulf and Jack Hudson. I think that was it. Everybody else is new. And we only got couple. So yeah. So all that stuff about predictions in September. I know people like to make them because it gets a few clicks in September. But for me, if you don't have enough evidence, you don't make predictions. Get the evidence first. And then after Christmas, they had a flaky December, and after Christmas they reset for the trophy. They blew the trophy out of the water, and then they've stayed going, and they've played with a chip on their shoulder. Rideau probably a chip on both shoulders. and added by the fact that he didn't get an award. But the most impressive thing was coming back from 18 for everything that they've done. That was a game. That was a game whereby they were not perhaps as much as people think, but they were out talented. But mentally, they were incredibly resilient all year, and that's partly because of the Ryan Rideau combination, which kind of rubbed up against each other so well. The reason, if Rideau had thrown that basketball at Nwaba, Rideau's getting a technical.
Yeah,
Right?
probably.
Probably. The reason Ryan didn't get it is because Ryan's not been that all year. Ryan's been the quiet, the more thoughtful, the one who communicate with the refs. So that gets you leeway, right? And having that kind of dynamic rub up against Rideau's ultra sandpaper-esque spirit, human sandpaper, basically, every spiky, everything is going to be challenged. And then having all those other guys outside of that who are willing to bind their rules, a lot of them because they were basically being allowed to shoot when they wanted. That's not a bad thing. It wasn't that because the shots that they wanted to take were the shots that they were getting. Maceo can shoot those shots. AJ Stevens can shoot those shots. Kristen knows if he gets a rebound, he can go full court. No one's going to blame him. He just have to slot the ball back and throw it to a point guard. Then he can get in the corner. Then he can attack. So they're all doing the things that they like to do. I think Vince had a saying, which was, it was all with his teams. It was all about kind of the player and the club having equivalent expectations. If the player's expectations meet with the club's expectations of what they want, it's great. But you've got a player who thinks he should be doing different things. He's better than what the club's asking him to do, or a player who's not playing enough, etc. Cam Holden had 3 minutes today. He's up on the bench at the end, waving a towel. And Cam Holden's a talented player, but it wasn't him today. So you've had all those kind of extra things going, but basically it's been the Ryan Rideau dynamic. And that is, that's gold dust, and I'm not quite sure if they're going to replace it. No, we'll get to that bit later. Get to the next bit. So incredible year for them. I think. No, incredible year. I think even I was saying Ben went and shook everybody's hands at the end today, which was good, because obviously there was some pushback over at the end of the trophy final and the tweet going back and forth and all that type of stuff. But I think Cheshire earned London's respect. Absolutely. And you could see that, London were invested in that game far more than we were in the final, in trophy final.
Decker, the MVP with the game-winning shot, 17 points, 7 of 11 shooting, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. Matt Morgan had 16 points. Philip and Olashenny both had 12. Rye, 21 points and 7 rebounds. Rideau, 20 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists and 6 steals. Jack, 19 points and 6 rebounds, only 8 points off the bench for
yeah, but you've heard me talk all year about, or the last few weeks about, how your benches get shorter in the playoff. You guys, they only played, I think Kristen played 16 minutes. Stevens played like 9, Holden played 3, Ulf played 5. I mean, he ran with the people he needed to run with. That's because you're down 18 to a certain degree. You've got no choice. You've got to be best guys on the court. They took Rideau out for 2 minutes in the first quarter. It fell apart. That part of that 15-0 run was when Rideau was off the court. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm pretty sure Rideau was, I haven't checked the plus minuses, but I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't like a +6 or a +7 in that game. And they just lost the 2 minutes he was off.
Yeah, I'm just quickly looking at it now. He says filling. Rideau was a +6.
+6 in a
37 minutes and 54 seconds.
So in the 2 minutes 6 seconds, they lost by 9. As he game. So when people say, "Oh, he needs to get a rest," or "We need more players," no, you just need good players. And it's a perfectly reasonable thing to sit him down for 2 minutes in the first quarter, because that might be the only rest he's going to get. So 2 minutes, that's all it took. And that game is out, and Cheshire are playing from behind. So they cut the bench right down, which I thought worked for them. Even London cut their bench down a little bit. I mean, Sharma didn't play much second half. Matt Morgan's up in the 30 minutes. I think somebody else was at 32 minutes as well. Which Tariq Phillip maybe.
Philip was 31 minutes 39 seconds.
Yeah,
Matt Morgan was 29 minutes. So Philip actually coming off the bench played the most minutes.
yeah,
I guess that's in part because Taylor got in
yeah,
foul trouble and didn't
yeah,
play. Didn't play.
possibly true, but so they took it that way as well. But overall, it was a great game.
Mm. Really, really fun game to watch. So it's usually at this point, Dave, that we go, oh, it's all over for another season and we'll come back next year and do it all over again and blah, 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 blah. But obviously there's a lot going on in the world of British Basketball League and beyond that leaves us sort of questioning what's going to happen beyond today, to be honest with you, never mind come
Yeah.
September.
So
Um,
are we on kind of scorched podcast earth territory?
we might be, we might be. So obviously, I'm sure everybody's read all of the stuff about 777, the league's investors, and if you haven't, there's loads out there. Go and read
The
it.
league owners, not just investors, but
Yeah. So you can see they are having their financial challenges, and there are court cases, and there are airlines not taking off, and there are football clubs, plural, being repossessed or something in Belgium and in
and people
Brazil,
being
and
and directors resigning and people
directors
being appointed
resigning,
to
and
run companies and all the things that lead you to believe that that they're
all,
not what they said they were.
all is not entirely stable, which obviously then throws into question as to what happens to the league first and foremost, and what happens to the Lions as an adjunct to that as well. The one thing I would say before we dive into that is I would caution people just to remember that there are people for whom this will be a matter of their job or not their job, who turn up to work and do a very good job and have done for however long they've been working at the British Basketball League or indeed London Lions. And I say that in part because I was sort of minded back to when COVID was about to unfurl on us. I remember getting into a few debates on Twitter where people were almost glorifying the possibility of what would have been hundreds of people who work in the British basketball economy out of business. And I also say that as somebody who can empathise it, because I don't know. I know you know, Dave, but I don't know if everybody knows. But in a previous lifetime, I did work at the British Basketball League, and the reason I stopped working at the British Basketball League was because they got into financial difficulties and I was laid off. So I know what that feels like when you're going through the last few weeks of a season where you're not expecting to be, or you don't know what's going to happen on the other side of the final day of the season. So I just sort of I would ask that people as they react to things, whatever the things may be, go forward, do at least consider that there is collateral damage along the way of people who've not done anything other than turn up to work and done a decent job
Yeah,
to
well, there's no
do
joy
all
in it,
that.
is there?
No, there's no joy in it.
No joy in it. And there's not even a I told you so, or even because we just kind of let it run out and want to see where it went. And or even any Schadenfreude in it, because genuinely, I think 99% of people wanted it to succeed.
Yeah.
And I include myself in that.
Mm.
The difficulty is that those of us who've lived through the previous lives of the British Basketball League, today had very substantial Manchester Giants vibes.
Very substantial Manchester Giants vibes.
Now, for those who don't know, 1999 maybe,
2000, I think it was.
2000, 2000, Manchester Giants with an all-league team, with I think Travis Conlon, Phil Handy, Tony Dorsey, Roy Hairston, proper kind of.
I think it was the following year, wasn't it? Wasn't it the Dorsey, Holly, McCord? Wasn't it when they signed all the players that had been in the BBL rather than the guys who had? And they said,
in any event, you
Ronnie
probably
Baker, I think, was on the
team.
Yeah,
they won. Makiba Perry, I think that'd be right. Yeah,
might be.
Yeah, they won they won the final, and in the pub opposite the arena, they were told, the owners walked in and said, "Oh, that's it. Sorry, we're all finished. We're not funding this anymore. Off we go. It's all over and done with." And that led to a substantial appeal of basketball in Manchester for the best part of 20 years. They kind of muddled on for about 18 months, played in the velodrome, signed an Irish coach, if I remember rightly. But then halfway through I think the subsequent season, they had to pull out of the league, leading to one of the most ill-judged TV summarising comments ever, with unfortunately Billy Mims saying that, oh, at least the conferences will be balanced now.
TV, which remember that.
No, I remember that. Billy was always looking for positives. Needs to be 6 teams in each conference now. God, that's not going to go down well. Not well judged comment. But the point being was that, you know, we didn't have a team in Manchester for another basically 13 years, 12, 13 years until Jeff Jones resurrected it. And even then they were, you know, it was a starting all over again. And the reason for that is because so many people get burnt when something like that happens, because people lose their jobs, people lose their sponsors, lose their faith, the local economy, the local people that you depend upon to make a club work. They say, well, you know, it almost has to go out of memory. Before you start again, right? And you know, it's not the only time that this has happened. There have been other times throughout. Sheffield, the current owners took over from Chrysalis, I think. Newcastle, current owners took over from the Sporting Club, and that lost a ton of money. Surrey, Guildford, whatever, have been through about 2 different pre-pack administrations whereby they pack up the club and sell it, and basically the creditors get nothing. So they've got so the whole thing has to start without the goodwill of the people who've been funding it previously. Still don't have a team back on the south coast. Worthing tried it for a year, but Brighton obviously went bust in a very difficult way in 2005, with people left owing money as well. So the year or the 2 that you get of the buzz of it can lead, unfortunately, to multiple years of disillusionment afterwards. And if there's anything that we've been probably certainly I've been cryptically trying to kind of get at over the past 18 months with the raised eyebrows, it's been that. You know, it's not what it is now, it's what it's going to be. And it's not the question of just saying, oh, well, we haven't got it anymore, at least we never had it before, so what? Actively be in a considerably worse position than when we started, which, you know, for a league which is bragging about sustainability is not something that I'm overly impressed with. So,
and I suppose there's that sort of the almost the empty calories of it, if you like, is the sort of there's been, and I probably the women's team is the best example of this, the London Lions women's team, because we know none of them are coming back, and we know whatever exists in that space will be nothing like what we've seen to this point, despite what they've achieved over the last couple of years, and particularly this year winning Eurocup.
There's something else about that as well, you know, which doesn't, just briefly, it doesn't sit with me. I made that point before, and I hadn't thought about this before, about certainly in Newcastle, how everything is done straight down the line, 50-50. You know, announcing that, you know, our women's team's not worth our investment, but not saying anything about their men's team.
I don't, have they ever announced it? Have they ever? I know everybody's said it, and it's been, you know, written and whatever.
I thought it was announced that they would be going to a more developmental structure next year. I thought maybe that might have been the wording that was used. Maybe wrong about that, but certainly I mean, well, it didn't strike me as, it struck me as saying, well, actually, you know, we might make a bit of money off the men's team, but the women's team are not going to make any money, so we're just going to push them to one side. And it's that second-class citizens thing, which I didn't sit very well with this.
The point I was going to make is it feels like there's been a lot of money thrown at it, and actually, what will you have? Going back to your sustainability point, what will you have on the other side, assuming that it all goes?
Same with Manchester Giants, you know, but they'll have a couple of cups, and people have memories, and you can't take away memories. Memories are, you know, I mean, Holly Winterburn will probably have a better career than she would ever have had. You know, there are individual points of gain, you know, which it would be unfair, you know, and far too kind of broad brush to throw away. You know, there was, and you know, we've had 5,500 people in London watching basketball games in Europe at a high level. We've had high level players. I get to see players like, you know, Sam Decker and David Nwaba. I'm sitting three rows away from them. They're not players of the caliber that I've had the chance to see before as a fan of British basketball in this country. So there are little tiny kind of fleeting wins, if I can put it that way, in the big picture. Not fleeting to the people involved, but fleeting wins in the big picture. But the big picture itself has become so, and this is not just on London, the big picture itself has become so murky. And it's not just the 777 stuff. Over the past 18 months, 24 months, that there is a concern that there's a real credibility gap developing. And I've been banging on, I'm afraid, all year about the governance of the league, banging on about the operations of the league. And we can go through, we can count them off. We've all heard the checklist, it's TV timeouts, it's the refs not having replay, it's the lack of consistent approach in the various gyms, it's the fixture scheduling, which we all forgotten about now, but it was pretty darn awful, early on in the season. It's the events promotion. It's the changing the formats of the league, which I don't like. To be blunt, I don't like. It's reinventing something which I don't think needed reinvented, which I think has resulted in us having less meaningful basketball this year than we've had in the past. And I don't think you build an audience with less meaningful basketball and do with more meaningful basketball. If Cheshire could have, if we had a cup competition, and I've already forgotten the All-Star game. Other people might not have, but I've already forgotten it, right? I won't forget the finals that have gone down to the last 3 seconds or the last 10 seconds or the last hour in 10 years' time. Ask me about the 2024 All-Star games, like, what? Okay, I wasn't there, but even so. So it's all of that stuff, the discipline, league discipline has been a farce in relation to the messaging of the reporting, all of that stuff. And cover your ears for a second. The fact that you're not commenting on the final is ridiculous. Okay. And that's the last nice thing I'll ever say about you. I can't have a situation, we can't have a situation where we've got Drew Lasker thrusting a microphone into the face of 4 apparent TikTokers. One of them who uses the immortal phrase, London Lions going to smack these bums live on Sky. And that's disrespectful to Cheshire, disrespectful to the audience. I'm afraid that's not being down with the youth or adapting to a new audience. That's just crude, unpleasant, unnecessary, unvetted, and unprofessional. All of those things. And I know you can't talk about this because you're on the TV, and I get that. But it's just, I don't know what they're trying to appeal to. I do know that the vast majority of people who are watching that on the TV are not tuned into TikTok. I'll tell you that now. And obviously the fact that it's set up against the last weekend of Premier League football games ain't great either, but that sometimes needs must, etc. I get that. You can't have situations whereby people don't, people who are commentating on TV don't know who some of the players are. And that was the Kimball McKenzie thing back in January. I'm going back to that, but I thought that was devastating. And if they are wanting to appeal to a US market, then they need to come out and absolutely say it. Because at the moment, when I hear, and I tweeted about it this afternoon, today was Pravda, and it's been subsequently Pravda with Mark Woods in the press conference where the league are saying we don't want to talk anything about the rest of the future of the league. Well, what? It's a league. It's your league. If you can't talk about the future of the league at the point of your league, if you're not willing to answer a tricky question or even to say, look, things are really up in the air at the moment. We don't know. We're going to try and sort things out in whatever way. But if you can't put forward some form of press release or information pack, and you get to the point whereby your commentator, who is obviously paid for and obviously following orders, is speculating about the London Lions women's team as to, it's hard to keep them all when they're all so successful because they're all going to be poached by other teams. When every single person in the know knows fine well that team is not going to be there next year. And yet the implication given to viewers is different. Then that is a problem. If you're not going to be honest with your consumer base, that is a problem. And I've got to that point whereby probably today was it, but the gaslighting was just too much today. You know, it was comical alley. It was everything's fine, nothing to worry about. You know, woohoo! The bridges are burning behind us. You know, we get Sam Decker at the end saying there was a nice way to finish off, which may or may have not meant this season, or may have not meant his time in London. We don't know because no one ever asked the question. I just think it's insulting to the consumer base. I think it's insulting to the whole the British basketball community. I think we deserve better than this. And I think for the past 12 months, the biggest thing that they've failed to do is to build on what's gone before. And instead they've raised a lot of it to the ground. And as a result, you see a 1 quarter empty O2 today. You see a finals in January, which was about the same, the trophy final. You don't see any sponsorship, any league sponsorship. I think Biffa have just joined, but nothing substantial. And you don't see, and you do know, because we all know, because the accounts are out, that were £3.5 million in the red. Now I'm looking at it all and thinking, well, actually, for £3.5 million, despite no doubt the best efforts, and this is not a personal attack on anybody, despite the best efforts of people who think they're doing what's right, and who are doing, who are doing the job that they're meant to do, and they're putting the highlight show on, and the camera work is, we've got more camera work, we've got better coverage in that way. The overall structure, the overall thought process behind what has gone on over the past 12 months has been flawed. And what is concerning is that at this point, the proverbial hits the fan, the money is gone, and a lot of this stuff, and the league is in difficulty because people owe money to the league, to 777, and how that's going to work. But more than that, a lot of stuff, a lot of goodwill has been lost in doing that, and obviously a lot of money which could have been used in, I would suggest, far better ways, subject to all the other the positives that we mentioned before. Being burnt through.
And there is that. I mean, that in some ways it was part of the point I said about empty calories, where you end up full for a bit, and then you're hungry again, rather than the teaching a man to fish, if I can go for another proverbial sort of thing. And I guess the other point that you made is, like, none of us actually quite know, and it is quite. I totally understand that it's difficult in the build up to your showpiece event to talk about stuff that is around and about and isn't necessarily positive. But we're all sitting there going, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen in 2 weeks? What's going to happen? What's going to happen in September?
Yeah, I mean, Mark tweeted something else. It's Mark Woods' last game, today, so he's done 28 years, so we should give Mark a little bit of a prop for that, for the amount of time he's put in relation to it. And he just tweeted something basically today, just to say, look, there's far less media interest than there's ever been. Now, I tweeted something back to say, does that include the TikTokers? Because obviously there's a lot of them. But how does that fit? Surely, this is the showpiece final. Surely, the media you shouldn't have people who are there every year who actually aren't there. What's going on? Have we gone so far in seeking to attract? It's the archetypal county cricket 2020. If you go too far in seeking to attract your new glorious technical logged in, tuned in, Snapchatting audience, then you lose everybody else. Is that a price worth paying? Well, there's an argument. Well, actually, it could be a price worth paying, because this is the way we break into the market. Which market? Well, Washington State and California. Don't really care. Okay, which are the markets? We have. I can't get across, and I'm not. We have a commentary which is not aimed at our country. We have a league which is not our league. The commentary is aimed at people who know the difference between Seton Hall and Seton Hill University, or at least wouldn't know that if the commentator did. And that's an editorial decision. That's not on Todd Harris, right? Todd Harris is doing the job that he's there for, which is to promote our league in another country by going through all the information that he needs to go and it needs to tell them about who played where and when. The biggest story about Chloe Gaynor is not that she went to Long Beach State University. Right? There's a heck of it. And the same with Abbey Lowe or whoever else. There are a heck of good stories to tell about those ladies who are doing a fantastic job in Newcastle at the moment. Out of Derby, went to Derby, went to London, came back. Not that they went to Long Beach State University, but might matter to somebody in California, but I don't care. And I've tolerated, and to be honest, I've tried to brazen it out and try to rationalize it in my own mind. I think, well, this could bring, this is going to bring success. It's going to help the bigger picture. Try not to be small-minded about it. Try not to be parochial about it. But I've got to that point whereby, no, we can't be somebody else's product. We have to be our own product. And we've got to the point whereby this league has no financial sustainability rules, unlike any other sports competition basically now in the world. We have virtually no rules in relation to classification of import players. Albeit there are a few leagues in Europe which are the same. So I kind of understand that if the money is there, but we've got teams with 6 Americans, some of them 7 Americans, some of them 8 Americans, or with a couple with British passports. We've got 3 with all the money that we've had put into this league. There was 3 of the GB team in September playing in this league, in a game against Holland in Newcastle in February, playing in this league. And I think Josh Tibbett hardly played, so he was like the 12th man. And obviously Gabe wasn't there. So where's the other 9 there? They're still dotting around peripatetically around the other leagues in Europe, so it's not really helping the sport in the big picture there. There doesn't be any synergy between, again, the governing body and the professional league. Still none. The governing body was shouting out a sponsorship with Subway, but no one's actually saying whether it just means the players get free sandwiches to go with the pot noodles at halftime. Sorry, that's another dated reference.
Retro.
Pot noodle reference.
Pot noodle.
So I think disillusioned is probably my best. And I've been trying to fight this disillusionment. I've been trying to fight becoming grumpy. And also watching all these games and being a bit negative about people and all that stuff. And I don't want to become a parody and a kind of just a caricature, this wasn't good, that wasn't good, you didn't do this, didn't do that, or none of this works, everything's broken, and just be like that. And so we've kept a lid on it for most of the summer, but for most of the season. But when you put all of it together, I think it's been pretty underwhelming. And that's probably a direct response to all the hype, which then automatically gets us wound up. Because if people are hyping stuff falsely, then that kind of winds me up into, well, actually, what are the facts here? And I hope I don't think it's gone too far. I hope there will be lessons to be learned, but they didn't learn any after the trophy final, so I'll be surprised. But once the ownership, this should have been a great year. We've got Sheffield in a new venue. They've wanted 20 years. They're doing a great job in there. They've got tons of people in there. It's loud when you go in there. You've got Caledonia in a new venue. You've got Newcastle and Leicester with venues of their own. You've got Cheshire who are able to play outside of Sundays for the first time. You've got Surrey who won like 13 more games than they did last year on an upward curve. You've got Bristol and Newcastle playing in Europe, as well as the teams with the legacy money in London and Caledonia. It should have been a great year. But we've had, if you look back on all the games we've done, outside of the Sheffield, the Prentice Nixon 3-point shot, and outside of that game today, men's games, there's not many that stick in the mind. Not many that come back to me and think, wow, what a game that was. And the reason for that is because there's so little jeopardy on them. And I mean, there have been some close games and some excellent games and all that stuff. Newcastle played London in a double overtime game in October. We've all forgotten about it now. It's a good game. Didn't really mean much. And I think the structure an NBA structure is not suited to our season at all. I think there'd be more meaningful games. I think the advantage of the PBL was that there was always knockout games, always games with an end on them. I mean, I can tell you now, I remember Kieran Achara making a 3-point shot from the halfway line over his shoulder 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was a quarter final. That had been a league game, that would have just passed into. I mean, that was a quarter final. We probably won all 4 because of that. But then we didn't have to beat Leicester again in one of the finals. And I just don't remember that many games like that. You know, a couple maybe Glasgow Leicester was a good game. I remember when Clifton Moore made a shot with a second to go. But and that's I think an issue. So yeah, so I've got a little, you know, headstone with all my do away with this, do away with that, dump everybody, allow Newcastle to win, please. Let us have more money than everybody else. Or let's go back a decade, all that stuff. Seriously, I'm ready
Well,
for
in some ways, that was because you generated it. So,
oh yeah,
so,
absolutely,
so
yeah.
that's
We
the,
generated it,
that's
and
the
also
thing,
we
yeah.
we were able to return a team. There was a level of personal loyalty, which meant that, and we were able to return players year after year, which makes a massive difference. And then took that on as well. And that's always going to be the same. You know, the best organisations are ultimately going to find a way. And there's no problem with as I say, the competitive balance. But part of me thinks that Cheshire have been cheated out of an unbelievable year this year.
Yeah.
Cheshire won the trophy this year. Okay, go back and go in the record books. They won the trophy. They lost 13 league games. Okay, 23 and 13. You look in the book, it's second, but it's still 23 and 13. You compare it with years gone by, you think nothing special about that. They lost in the final. Well, good teams have lost in the final of the playoffs. You know, there wasn't an extra competition for them to kick into, which would have potentially, you know, could have changed it to something even beyond that. And you know, their season will be lost in the midst of time. Yeah, but that was as impressive a season as anybody has had in, you know, in a substantial period of time. Certainly as impressive as the second half of the season. So I think maybe I'm just an old fogey. I just like it the way it was. But if it's going to be changed to this degree, I'd like to see results. I haven't seen any results. It's Emperor's New Gold stuff. The more they tell us it's fantastic, the more they tell us it's brilliant, the more skeptical I get. Sorry, guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And we will see what, as I say, the next few days, weeks, months.
I deliberately haven't touched on the money side of it because we still don't know.
No.
And no one wants the whole thing to go. Unfortunately, you know, no one wants it to go and sink. And I'm sure even if 777 do sink, then there will be a way out, and there's a league there waiting to be sorted, albeit difficulty with issues with Manchester.
History of British Basketball League is there's usually a new fan found somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always someone else to sell the snake oil to.
When the stuff hits it, we can find another clean one over there somehow. Yeah.
I think it will, because there are some, you know, there's a lot of positivity in relation to gyms and people getting and filling those gyms, and the games themselves, despite our best efforts, have been made exciting. Are still exciting. It's still a great sport to watch. But I ain't seen it. Sorry, all the hype is rather rebuffed me, turned me off a little bit as to what we've seen this year, which is fairly depressing. I'm sorry about that. But we
will go back to the. We'll see what happens. And Dave and I will no doubt be back in September to make predictions and hype the league up in a way that only Dave can.
Yeah, you don't know what it is now, guys. You don't know. It's tough because I am generally. I know you are as well. We are both enthusiasts. Skeptical enthusiasts, but enthusiasts for everything about it, because it's a great sport. It gets kids involved. It is energetic. It is athletic. It is skillful, and everybody in the gym is not paid enough, and everybody in the gym is far more talented than anybody sitting on the outside could think. Every single person in the gym is far more committed than that. So there is so much good there. But I'm of the view that, you know, tweaks may have been needed, and I think the apple cart has rather been overturned. I think they've buried their head in the sand in relation to the difficulties in competitive balance. That everything is basically been, you know, everything is fine, then look over there, whatever. And to a certain degree, we've been banging on about it for a while, albeit, you know, not overtly, probably a little bit covertly, with like cheap, nasty asides and stuff. But at this point, you know, it needs a substantial reappraisal I hope no one loses their job. I think the people who put the time in this year and have marketed the league, the marketing has improved undoubtedly, and because there's been a lot of people behind it. The the news feed has improved. But wouldn't it be nice to see some concrete result of that? I just don't think the strategy is right. I don't think the strategy has been right. And I don't think that by appealing to the the law and order and Judge Judy viewers on the northeast coast of America, that we're going to change it. And just on that note, apparently, just to finish off that, and I didn't know this was coming, I've had a quick message about the league's press release in relation to this final, which has apparently said that in the most dramatic men's final in recent history, the London Lions took home the trophy after a closely fought victory with a dramatic final display beating Cheshire 88-85. The two teams faced each other in this trophy final back in January, with the northeastern side stealing the win from the southern team.
Oh, I don't
on that note, you know,
Dave will be out on the streets of the northeast
celebrating. It's a social celebrating. You know, but it's just you're shooting yourself in the. I know that's pretty trivial. I get that, but if but we haven't got a scoreboard in the arena which is working properly, you know, it doesn't. We haven't got a discipline system which is working. It just, you know, you have to have a working league before you can start shouting about it. And I don't think it's worked well enough this year, in any way, shape, or form.
So, on that cheery note,
congratulations, London. Great season, Cheshire.
Yeah.
Take away from any of that. Watch this in two parts.
Yeah. And we will head off into the summer and see what the summer brings us, and hopefully it's a lot more games back in September.
Yeah, and if anybody thinks remarkably that there's some target that I've missed, please send me a message and tell me. I think I tried to get all of them, you know, every target going.
So have a great summer, everybody, and we'll Dave and I'll be watching some basketball somewhere at some point in September, and maybe we'll even be back here talking about it. We'll have at least 2 messages to discuss it at some point between Dave and I. But thank you very much for putting up with us all the way through the season, everybody, and for listening. We do appreciate the fact that people
strong side corner.
People take the strong side corner. Everybody, people take the effort to listen to our ramblings and actually come up and say nice things to us as well. Which I was
to you maybe I stay away from. You know, I'm a bit Sheldon Cooper. You know, don't touch and socialize and stuff. Yeah. I'm too busy. I'm too worried that someone's going to come up to me and take me to task.
Yeah, and we can only hope that Tejan Lucas is in the league next year.
Come on, Tejan.
Keep Mrs. Lucas amongst our brethren. But as I say, have a great summer, everybody. And well, who knows? We might be back again next season to do it all over again. But for now, goodbye.
Thanks, guys.